Good morning, everybody. Man, it's been a while. How you doing, JMart? What's up?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Yeah.
The favorite. This has got to be my favorite weekend. I have no idea what's going to happen. A couple of disclaimers before we start here with the March Madness brackets. I really think I'll run this by you, but I really think it's easier to handicap these games on Saturday and Sunday. Like if you're really going to bet individual games, so hard to figure out what the hell's going to happen with this 5 day layoff, the celebrations, which team is in what mindset. But if you like basketball and you're going to watch the games, I think, yeah, if you have a good opinion, you can actually make money Saturday and Sunday. I'd be careful about today and tomorrow. What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely agree. I think if you're going to bet today or tomorrow, bet on point totals. I think there's some matchups where you're going to see teams that really like to move quick, shoot a ton. Those matchups, if you have two teams that are doing that, I think just targeting that total is a great idea. But trying to predict how much team's going to win by at this point is really sketchy, and I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah, Thursday and Friday is difficult. And the second thing that I really look for is the location of the games.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain times where it's a real benefit and other times where it's really not a benefit. And we'll go through the brackets and get to certain situations there. But yeah, those are my two disclaimers. And now let's get through it. We're going to go region by region and, go through each game, each situation, not like rip through it, but at the same time, we're going to be done here within a half hour, 40 minutes. Guess we waited to I would love to know real quick before we go when most people actually submit their brackets now. Like, I would like to know where the American people are. Do most of them come in the night before, like Wednesday night, or do you think most of them come in at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock this morning?
I mean, I know I'm still tinkering. Like, I can't stop just like making little changes over and over again. Like, I probably like changed it back from what it looked like 2 days ago to something new and then back again. Like, it's just, I can't stop messing with my brackets is a problem. I have to like keep messing with my main brackets, then churn out a bunch of like secondary brackets just to kind of like get my fix, I guess. But
Dude, now with the AI stuff, you can just like type in what type of bracket you want. It's like,
yeah,
hey, I want really smart schools, or I want teams that have funny last names. The next thing you know, you don't have to go through it all. All right, let's do it. Duke, Siena. Let's go with the East. Not waste any of our time there. So Duke's going to play either the winner of Ohio State or TCU. That's actually the first game today. Quick thoughts on Ohio State, TCU, and whether or not either of those teams can beat Duke.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State's coming into the tournament really hot. They've been a much better team at the end of the season than they were at the beginning. I know they were ranked early, but they hit a really big rough patch. Did well enough in the tournament, have, I think, moved up to being an 8 seed at this point. The other issue is that TCU is a really good team, too. And I think TCU, as far as a 9 seed goes, is a really tough draw for Ohio State. They play really aggressive. Ohio State plays for a lot of control and plays through a guy named Bruce Thornton a ton. And that's why you've seen like Ohio State be able to take a game off of a Purdue, take a game off of a Wisconsin. But I think when you look at the Big 12 this year, you're looking at a conference that was better than the Big 10 as far as basketball goes. TCU was able to knock off Florida. Again, it was early in the season, but they still were able to catch them. And then they also caught Iowa State. And I think that I look potential-wise, I like TCU a lot more. I know they're a little bipolar as a team, but I lean TCU just because I think they can score a little more dynamically or with more dynamic. They're a more dynamic team essentially than Ohio State, and I really value that in those first round matchups.
Thornton's your prototypical awesome college guard, probably not an NBA player, but
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's stay in the top half of the bracket. Duke would play TCU. You think that would be a tight game? What's your feelings on Duke as we move along here? Because they would end up getting the winner of Kansas and St. John's unless you see an upset in the first round with either of those teams.
I can see St. John's slipping against Northern Iowa. I have some brackets predicting that. I don't really think it's going to happen. I think St. John's. I don't see a Rick Pitino led team losing early twice in a row. I just don't see it happening. And as far as Duke, Ohio State, TCU, I think they can handle business at that stage. They really haven't struggled that much against lower quality opponents. No disrespect to either of them, but Duke should take care of business. I'm not too worried there. The worries do definitely come whether it's Kansas or St. John's. I think Kansas is always going to be underseeded because they've missed so much Darren Peterson this year. So they are play at a much higher level than a 4 seed. And that was something I was worried about going into the tournament, that they are kind of capable of making a run. I think they can take it to Duke. Kansas plays really good defense. I think they could stymie Cam Boozer pretty well. I still lean Duke though, just objectively. I don't think the defense is good enough on either side. I know St. John's plays it well too. I don't really think either team can catch Duke at this point. I think if you're really predicting Duke to lose in this tournament, it has to, in my opinion, happen to Elite Eight onwards. I don't really see a way they lose in those first three matchups.
Yes. So I think Kansas gives Duke a real test. I don't know if St. John's does. St. John's wants to bully their way through it. I don't think you're going to do that against Duke, but I think St. John's could bully their way through Kansas. I can't figure out St. John's. They burned me last year. I had them winning the whole thing. And then Bettino decided to get mad at the guard. I forget his name, but he just didn't play him. Yeah. He wasn't very good, but then he just got benched. And now their team this year is just – I kind of thought it was Fugazi the way they beat UConn. The refs let them play football, and they were really mad because they were embarrassed about what happened a few weeks ago in UConn. So I don't know. I don't love St. John's there, but I do – think that Kansas is a relatively good matchup for St. John's in the sense that Kansas can get punked the way that Houston punked them. But I tend to agree with you that Duke would most likely slip up in the Elite Eight. So on the bottom half of the bracket, it's Michigan State and UConn is the headline, right? So if you get to a Michigan State UConn Sweet 16 game, that's like a pick'em game. All bets are off. Hard to have a strong opinion on that. Just going to be an amazing basketball game. So I'll ask you, who's more likely to slip up and who would get them?
I don't see Michigan State really slipping up. You just had the news that Michael Brown won't be playing in the first round matchup for Louisville. That's a big shooter just off. That's basically half their offense with the way they've played basketball this year. I don't think they make it out of the first round now. I think it's a perfect spot for a South Florida team that probably is, again, better than an 11 seed to kind of step up, take control of the game. And I don't think Louisville is going to be able to score enough to hang with South Florida in that matchup. As for Michigan State, this is a traditional Tom Izzo high talent team. Like, this team is what Tom Izzo wants. You are going to have a hard time scoring. They're not the best at scoring either, but they're going to outscore you. They're going to make you as uncomfortable as possible. I don't see this Michigan State team dropping a matchup to a team seated lower than them. I really just don't. I don't think it's going to happen with the way they play basketball. I think their path to the Sweet 16 is one of the easiest in this bracket as far as that goes. And I think the opposite actually for UConn. I think Furman's a really good team. I'm not picking it, but I think that Furman could win that game. That being said, like, UConn probably has enough class, but another reminder people need to have is that UConn's a pretty bad 2 seed this year. They are, in my opinion, probably the worst or second worst with Purdue. They really haven't shown a ton that I've loved this year.
Interesting. Do you think UConn? I guess I kind of thought the other opposite way. I really like UConn this year because I thought the way they got destroyed by St. John's will kind of help them. I don't know if they have the high-end talent to win the whole thing, but I like them to beat Michigan State. It's interesting that you mentioned Furman because the first thing that I heard, all these different shows come out, and the first thing I heard is, man, Furman's got some big boys, which against UConn is like the first thing you need, right? They just want to bully you. So what about that UConn, UCLA, or UCF? That seems to be the UCLA-UCF game seems to be one of the more 50-50 games of the first round. Does UConn fear one of those teams more?
I'd fear UCLA more, absolutely. I think UCLA can really hang with UConn. They've been a great team down the stretch. They had the controversy with the coach coming out, said the weird stuff to the press. No one really loved it. But since then, they've been a much better team. I watched them beat Illinois. Like, that's a hard game to win. They went out and did it pretty handedly. I actually have some brackets here with UCLA beating UConn.
If that's the case, that Michigan State would, I don't say 100%, right? But I would love Michigan State against UCLA after the way UCLA just beat them, right, in the Big Ten tournament. Okay, so you're going to favor.
Honesty, I love Michigan State against UConn too. UConn has not been great from the free throw line this year. Michigan State's biggest flaw is they'll get you there pretty quickly some games. That's a trade-off I think Michigan State's willing to make, and I really do worry about how UConn looks from the line. If they can ever take control of that game, I don't really see it happening.
How good is Fears? Is he in the category of good enough because I don't know if Michigan State's high in talent. I kind of think Michigan State and UConn are such a similar team that I hate saying it, but I think Kansas is the only team, right? Kansas is liable to lose in the fucking first round out of all these, but Duke matches up pretty well across the board with St. John's, Michigan State, and UConn. It's Kansas that I think has enough high-end talent and counsel at the point guard spot. But what is your take on Michigan State, led by Fears? Do you think they could go? I guess do you have them beating Duke? It sounds like you have them in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I have them in the Elite Eight in almost every bracket. I have them beating Duke in a couple, or in one, I think, because again, a defensively strong team can beat anyone. Like I still look back to that one year where like St. Mary's was in like the Final Four and stuff, and it was just because they played good defense their whole way through the tournament. It was the chaos year with UConn winning it, and like good teams or San Diego State, my bad, and San Diego State just played great defense the whole way through, and that's kind of how they won games. So if you're playing good defense, it's a game-by-game basis. Your offense will be good enough the whole way through. You don't have to really worry about fatigue as much. That comes more on the offensive side. You're really just kind of worried about winning the moment. And I think that Michigan State's capable of doing that. And I think they're mature enough to really make things happen. All in all, I really think it is Duke's game to lose against Michigan State. I don't think that physicality will really play against Duke as much as people think it will. I think people are looking for a way to discredit this Duke team. And in all honesty, my only concern with them is the consistent concern with Duke of they're too young. I think that there is the likelihood of them going all the way through without dropping a game to me is very low. But that being said, I don't think it happens in the first round unless, like you said, I think Kansas can definitely catch them.
Alrighty, let's go west. Arizona, they're going to face this is way before your time, I guess. Rod Strickland's led Long Island team. Rod Strickland is the coach for, I guarantee you that game will be fun to watch, at least for a few minutes, because they're going to play really hard, and he's a hell of a coach. It's a cool story. If you're looking for, there's always a plethora of good stories. But anyway, so Arizona's going to win that game. They're going to face the winner of Villanova and Utah State, and mark this down as, I guess it's a homer pick or a bias pick, but it's my favorite pick of the first round is Utah State. Okay, so the game's all the way out west, which last time I checked on the map is closer to Utah. Villanova's got a long way to go. Villanova got embarrassed by Georgetown. Villanova's just not that good, and Kevin Willard's got bad karma. So I like Utah State. Let's kind of stop right there for a second before we get to the Wisconsin-Arkansas portion of it. Do you have an opinion on Utah State at all? Because I'm really just doing an anti-Villanova bet, and while we're there, why don't you give me your take on Arizona this year?
Yeah, I mean, what I've heard about Utah State, because I obviously haven't watched a ton, is that the 9 seed is a criminal low seeding for them. They probably are like a 7 or an 8 seed. Like it's
they're the only one out of the Mountain West this year. Like San Diego State didn't get in, New Mexico didn't get in, so that's people are kind of down on the conference. But keep going.
Yeah, and like I don't fully buy that. Like I look at their resume, they really seem to have just taken care of business, and that is something that people need to talk about because I think they're good enough to do that, and they also score really well. They're a really fast-paced team that scores the ball a ton. Villanova, people are going to pick Villanova because they remember the Villanova teams of old, and this just isn't that. This is their first time, I think, back to the tournament since Jay Wright left the school. So I don't put a ton of stock in Nova. I think realistically, if you're picking Utah State to win this game, you are picking the 8 seed in this matchup, and Villanova really probably is a 9 seed. As far as Arizona goes, I've watched a ton of Arizona. They do this weird thing when I'm watching them where it almost feels like they're mimicking the play style of the team they're playing against. So they kind of just they're kind of willing to play with the other team at their level and then just beat them at their game. And I can't think of a more demoralizing way to beat a team than that way, and they don't lose games. And that is, I mean, I get they don't have that premier scorer, but it's because everyone's scoring. And I think that they are, without a doubt, the most complete team in this field. And
what's the vibe, though? Because they got 6 guys that are going to the NBA, right? Like in the top 30, 40 picks. Everyone wants to win the games. I get it. Everybody has chemistry around this time of the year, especially like good teams. But do you buy into, man, it just doesn't mean as much to the players on Arizona this year as it will to maybe their opponent in a Purdue team, where they have a bunch of college basketball players who are older, who've been through it a lot. If you could forecast all the way to an Arizona-Purdue matchup, do you buy into you look like you could give a shit about that?
I mean, the issue with the argument for me is that Arizona lost 2 games all year. And so they've been putting a lot of effort into actually winning games during the season, which I think is really important, and I think is like reflected in how they're playing. Like when they've lost games, it's been because they've been hurt. Like they've been hurt a ton this year too. They've gone through a ton of injuries. I really think injuries are the way they end up like falling out of this tournament if players get re-injured, and it just kind of deflates the atmosphere in the locker room. My issue is I just don't think Purdue's a very good team at all either, and they're not my favorite team out of that bottom quadrant.
All right, let's fast forward. Let's go down there then, because you got before we go back to the West, because Wisconsin and Arkansas is fascinating. So I kind of want to save that for the end of this bracket, because that's if you're looking for a dark horse, I do think it's one of those 2 teams, because I don't really buy into Gonzaga down there. I'm not as familiar with Missouri. I like Miami. Why don't you walk me through your thoughts on the bottom half of bracket since you don't like Purdue?
Yeah, so BYU Texas is a fascinating matchup that I think can go either way. People have been talking about Texas. Texas is rising a ton. They've just been a flat out really good team to end the year, and they're a tough team to beat. And they score a ton, play good enough defense, but they're really down there to just like run it and just gun it with you. And their guy Swain has been phenomenal to end the season. BYU has AJ Dybonsa. People think it's going to carry him through to the second round. I think it definitely can. I have some brackets with Texas winning, but I definitely think if BYU can get hot, that's a dark horse Elite 8 team. I think that they have the talent to do it. Gonzaga doesn't lose in the first round, and that's huge for them because they are missing their best player for the first round, most likely. Or he will be limited in some capacity. I think that being Graham Ike. And I think Gonzaga matches up great against Texas, not as well against BYU. I think BYU could catch them. They probably won't, but they could.
Again, is Kennesaw State out your way? I know it's in Georgia.
They're just not a good team. They're just not good. I don't know how they got a 14 seed and Furman got a 15 seed. Like they are that bad, in my opinion. It feels like people just didn't do the research and just kind of picked at random with that that thing.
So the second round matchup, I agree with you. Texas BYU could go either way. I love the winner to beat Gonzaga. What are your thoughts on that?
I think if BYU wins it, I can see it happening. I think that Gonzaga plays a level of pedigree now. Like they've had the shocking losses down the stretch. I think they've learned from them really well, and I think Mark Few has gotten a lot better at not dropping those games against lower seeded teams. So I think BYU can catch them because of the talent. Gonzaga's a little older, but they're a little less talented. Texas, I don't think can, because Gonzaga will be able to still hold control of the game.
So where are we at with Miami and Missouri? Because I feel like whoever you like there, you like them to beat Purdue is what I'm hearing.
Sort of, but it's a tough argument because I don't love either team. I watched Missouri play against Illinois earlier in the season and then a couple games later in the season. They're fine. There's nothing about that team, for me, in all honesty, that jumps off the page. And Miami, basically outside of Malik Reneau, there isn't a ton that jumps off the page for me there either. I think there is some argument that the narrative of the former Indiana Hoosier going up against Purdue in the second round is enticing, that being Malik Reneau. I think Purdue can really just get to the Sweet 16 kind of easily. I don't think either of these teams are very good and have as big of a chance to catch them. I think if anyone would, it's Miami, but I think their biggest problem will be facing either BYU or Gonzaga in the Sweet 16. I think that that's a matchup that they should lose, in my opinion.
Where are we at with I love Wisconsin, but I don't know if I love Wisconsin and I'm going to get burned because they're hot at the end of the year. They spent all this energy at the Big Ten tournament. I'm watching all the games. I like Wisconsin a lot. I like the makeup of their team. And it's the opposite of kind of how I feel about Arkansas. I mean, everybody loves Acuff. Like, he's amazing. If you haven't seen him, you're about to see a show because he's fantastic. But I just think Wisconsin gets a great matchup with Arkansas. And I actually think Wisconsin matches up with Arizona. So are you going to tell me High Point's going to beat Wisconsin? Do you have opinion on Wisconsin? And then your thoughts on Arkansas as well?
I think High Point can catch Wisconsin. I think they're good enough to do it. And again, you're right about, I think Wisconsin did burn a lot of energy in that tournament run. They play super quick and they played a super deep tournament, which means they played a lot of basketball last week. And that will be something that is a problem probably earlier in this week compared to last. But you're right. I think if Wisconsin gets going, you will see something like what we saw in the Big Ten tournament. They play a little too dynamic for Arizona to mimic, and I think they could catch Arizona. But that being said, I think Arkansas can as well. I think Arkansas's first round matchup, in my opinion, is a cakewalk. Hawaii likes to isolate the ball handler and just kind of force them to create on their own. Arkansas's Darius Acuff, that's a matchup made in heaven for them. They couldn't be happier about that. I think Wisconsin is a little dicier, but I think Arkansas could win that too. I think if you're looking at Arkansas or Wisconsin, they can. This is a pretty easy group outside of Arizona. If either of them can beat Arizona, it's basically the Final Four for them. Like they are through to the Final Four at that point. The issue for me is I just love Arizona so much. They're such a complete team. It's really hard to pick against them. I have one bracket with Arkansas beating Arizona. Outside of that, I've kind of stayed away from picking that upset because Arizona is such a good team. And it sucks to say.
Who's your favorite player on Arizona?
Koa Pete, and then what's his name? The Barrios, is that his name? Yeah, those two are really good. I like Pete inside the arc. That's what I like. Like he's not good at shooting threes. He's good inside the arc without being super tall. And he doesn't get that physical matchup in that first in any of those games. Wisconsin, Arkansas won't bully him inside the arc. He'll get those points pretty easily. It's up until that final Elite Eight matchup where you'd really see that pressure. And yeah,
you can't beat Arizona in a tough. Yeah, I agree with you. What you said earlier about the Big 12. I'm favoring the Big 12 teams. I think those Houston, Iowa State, Arizona games, TCU, Kansas, those are really tough physical games. Wisconsin and Arkansas, they're going to have to outscore Arizona. Yeah, that'll be fun. All right, let's go to the Midwest. Michigan is the 1 seed. And Michigan is, behind Duke here as everybody's second favorite to win the whole thing. They're going to get the matchup of Georgia versus St. Louis. So let's start there because you should be an expert here on the Bulldogs. Is Athens becoming a basketball town here? You're going to make a run. How do you feel about the St. Louis matchup? You guys have the highest total, and St. Louis likes to walk the ball at the court. But if you're betting totals, I think that game's today, right? Are you today or tomorrow? Tonight.
Yeah, tonight at 9:45.
There you go. So you're up early. You'll not sleep. So it sounds like a fun day. What's the plan for Georgia, and what do you think about a potential matchup here against Michigan for Georgia or St. Louis?
Yeah, I mean, these are two teams that just love to push the pace. Like they both, I think, as far as possessions per game go, are in the top 10. They might both be even in the top 5. They like
St. Louis likes to push it too. Well, I was watching them at the end of the Dayton game, and it felt like they were a little bit slower up and down the court. No,
they can be, but they get the ball. They finish the possession quick, is what it is. Essentially, they get down there, they get their shot up, and they're done. So that game is, if you want to go for that pick 'em, go for it because these are two teams that like to just shoot, and your guess
makes the three. So you're telling me it's an NBA game. Whoever's making threes in that game is going to win. It's kind of hard to predict.
What I think is of note is that Georgia was really good out of conference. They weren't a great in-conference team, but I think they lost one game total out of conference, and that was against Clemson, who is now matched up as an 8 seed. So there is an argument, in my opinion, for Georgia to handle business. As far as the matchup against Michigan goes, the good news for both teams is that neither of them score through their bigs. Because if you score through your bigs, you're not scoring against Michigan.
Yeah, I was going to say, right?
Happen. Okay. The bad news is that Michigan still can guard the perimeter pretty well. And I don't think Georgia or St. Louis have a way to defend the paint against Michigan. It's kind of a free path to the Sweet 16. The issue this year is that the best teams really are that good. And it's really hard to find a matchup where they're going to slip up. That is still true here. Like there aren't a ton of flaws in Michigan's game. I don't think that Georgia or St. Louis are going to be able to exploit them.
Hofstra is facing Alabama. Akron's facing Texas Tech. Before we get to how either of those teams could take down Michigan, who's more likely to get upset in that 13-4, 12-5 situation?
I mean, I could say both. I really think it's both games could be dropped. I think again, obviously Texas Tech is missing JT Toppin, who was their main scorer. I don't know if Akron's going to be able to take advantage of it. From what I've heard about Akron, Texas Tech kind of matches up well there, so I think Texas Tech could kind of win that game. As far as Bama Hofstra, Bama has worse news with their second best scorer getting arrested on felony drug charges. I don't think you can survive that. It's too close to the tournament. I'm picking Hofstra there. Hofstra's a good team too. I don't think Bama can play after that news comes out unless Phylon comes out and plays really, really good basketball like we've seen before. I don't see them winning that first round matchup. And realistically, even if they do, I think Texas Tech or Akron would beat Bama in the second round. And then the fun part is that, in all honesty, with both these teams missing one of their star players, I don't think either of them can beat Michigan. Michigan kind of just got handed a cakewalk, in my opinion, to the Elite Eight in the group.
So Miami, Ohio last night. First of all, did you watch that game?
I didn't. I missed that one. I thought it was on Wednesday or
Yes.
Tuesday.
So that was a ton of fun. Miami, Ohio beats SMU last night in just an awesome college basketball game. I bring that up now because Akron is the team that actually won that conference. Akron's they're the biggest. It's the lowest spread in the 12-5 games. There's a lot of double-digit spreads today. We'll go through that here in a minute. But Akron's the smallest one. They're only getting, I think, 7.5. So that's an interesting flyer to take. I don't love Michigan at all. I think they're primed for an upset, but I actually don't know. I want to take Alabama. I want to think, hey, we can rally behind it. It's kind of like one of those like no harm, no foul situations. So the rest of the guys on the team, it's not like, it's bad karma or, it's just a knucklehead guy on the team being a knucklehead. So it is an easy rallying cry, except their whole team is based on getting up and down the court and scoring, and he is a big part of it. So that's tough. On the bottom half of the bracket, what are we doing here? Because Iowa State just burns people for the past couple of years. You want to take Iowa State, and then they absolutely shit the bed the past few years. They lost to Ole Miss last year and just got ran out of the building. That don't even know how that game happened. Then they lost to Illinois the year before in what amounts to one of my worst experiences watching a college basketball game that I can remember in the tournament. And now here they are at the bottom of the bracket against Kentucky or St. Clara. And then Virginia's down there, Tennessee's down there. So floor is yours. What jumps out here in the bottom of the Midwest? And then we'll get to the South to finish up.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched Miami of Ohio play. It was great for the record to see them win that 11 seed matchup. Proof that they deserve to be in the tournament was huge. Tennessee's beating them. I just don't think they can hang with Tennessee. If they end up doing that, that'd be really cool. It'd be a great story. I don't see it happening personally. Okay. Virginia should handle Wright State. I don't see that being too hard of a matchup. And then moving on, I don't think Tennessee beats Virginia either. I think Virginia is just a better team. This isn't one of those Tennessee teams of the past couple of years that are really, really composed and mature and able to take advantage. They have a great freshman in Nate Ament, and I don't love a ton of the other stuff they have.
They got Maryland's former point guard, Gillespie. What's your take on him?
He's good. He's good. Like, I mean, again, they're still a top 20 team, but I don't think that they're like, when you look back at those teams like Dalton Connect or what's his name, the super short point guard that they ended up losing a couple years ago. Like, they were really well-rounded, older, physical teams. This team just, I don't think, can hang with Virginia that well. I have a couple, again, with them beating Virginia because they are still a good team. Ultimately, what I think is whoever wins that game probably ends up losing in the to the team that makes out of the bottom part anyways. Kentucky Santa Clara to me it's a coin flip. I lean Santa Clara because Kentucky has just shot themselves in the foot so much this year. They just haven't been able to rally around anything at any point. I don't see that changing in the tournament for no reason. And Iowa State's just a really, really good team. I have them winning in that second round matchup, and I really have Iowa State kind of having the potential of making a big run. You said you were looking for that Michigan upset. I think the best chance of that happening in my opinion, relatively weak bracket or Midwest region is against Iowa State in the Elite Eight. I think Iowa State can handle business there. I actually have Iowa State making the Final Four in a good bit of my brackets. I have them winning in a couple because
Is that the only team, and that's the only team you think Michigan can lose to?
Bama on their day can beat any team in college basketball. That's all I'll say. Do I think it happens? No, but I think Bama, when they're playing their basketball on any day.
I love Michigan. Yeah, I don't love the way Michigan's playing. But I love their coach. He came from San Diego State, right? And
yes, yeah.
He was on he took the team to the Final Four. One of the first year that UConn just bum rushed everybody. Yeah. And then Ryan Odom, the former coach for UMBC, this is his first year in Virginia. So some good coaches down there. I don't know how good the teams are. Rick Barnes is a great coach. Yep. Everyone's going to root for Miami of Ohio. The game's in Philadelphia, so it's not that far. You'll have a big crowd. I wouldn't bet against them the way they were playing last night. All right, let's go to the South. And this is my hot take is I got Florida. I need you to help me out here, though. What about Xavier Lee? Because I look at Florida, and that's their guard. He came from, was it Princeton last year? Yep. He's like, Florida's got they got the best front court. I love the coach. I don't love that they got their ass kicked by Vanderbilt, but I don't hate it. Kind of makes me feel like, man, we got 3 extra days of practice, saved ourselves 2 extra basketball games, still have the 1 seed. I'll set the stage for you. Florida's going to get an opportunity to face either Vandy in the Sweet 16, which is just fucked up for Vandy. Let's be honest. There's no way they're beating that. After just embarrassing Florida, celebrating, jumping up and down, humiliating them, Florida, I think, would kick their ass in a rematch. And Nebraska, I would think, has a very, very, very small chance to beat Florida. So I like Florida at the top half. The bottom half, I can't figure out exactly why Florida has to play at Houston in the Elite Eight, considering Houston's a 2 seed. I know that's an easy, low-hanging fruit conversation, but Houston, the regional final is in Houston. So Houston will be a home team, like a legit home team besides the locker room situation. Fans, it's a home team. But Houston has a tougher path down there because Illinois is great. And I actually think the winner of St. Mary, Texas A&M is a tougher matchup for Houston than whoever has to play Florida. And then the last thing I'll say is the best matchup. I think it's tonight, right? UNC VCU. Like that game is basically in North Carolina. I can't wait for that game. I love VCU this year. UNC doesn't have Caleb Wilson. All right, go ahead. That's me setting the stage for why I think Florida's going to get to the Elite Eight. And if it's not Houston, I love Florida. If it's Houston, that's the rematch from last year's championship. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean,
there's a little more, there's more potential for chaos, I think, out of the South than any other region besides whichever one had Arizona and Arkansas. Just because I think Arkansas or Wisconsin can do some crazy stuff, and I don't think Gonzaga or Purdue are very good. But down here, I think Florida on paper has a relatively easy matchup, but I think Iowa could catch them. Florida, the big problem with Iowa, yeah, with Bennett Sturts, I think they have a 30 points per game scorer on the team, and I think that to an extent is all you can need, because what people need to remember is Florida is a phenomenal team. When they got dropped from the rankings earlier in the season, I thought it was crazy. But they lose to teams they shouldn't often. This was a problem back in the day last year, even before the championship run, and they don't have, like you were saying, a Walter Clayton Jr. to lean back on when all else fails. Xavier Lee just isn't that. In fact, Xavier Lee a lot of the time is the reason that they are faltering. That being said,
before you keep going, because they wanted the guard Aberdeen, who ended up in Kentucky. Like, he was supposed to be the star. So you just don't think Florida has enough scoring power, and that's why
I think they have everything they need. They're a 1 seed for a reason. They're very good, but they lose games they shouldn't all the time. They're a team, in my opinion, that sits there more as this matchup looks so simple, because I agree. I don't think Vandy should beat them again. They definitely could. They probably shouldn't. There's an argument that Vandy and Nebraska, neither of them actually make it out of their 5-12, 4-13 matchups, because I don't think Nebraska is very good, and I think Troy is pretty decent.
Okay.
In my opinion, Florida does have a cakewalk to the Elite Eight. Their issue is actually taking advantage of that. They're the 1 seed, in my opinion, that I think won't take advantage of that, or has the potential not to. And as far as the bottom half goes, I agree. In my opinion, it's a pretty straightforward Illinois and Houston Sweet 16 matchup. Illinois matches up terribly there. That is a matchup Houston will love. Houston is more physical. Illinois has struggled with physicality a lot this year. Illinois goes cold shooting a ton. They want to shoot threes. Houston wants you shooting threes. So I think that Houston probably has again, very similar to Florida. On paper, it looks pretty simple to get to the Elite Eight, but what happens if North Carolina gets hot? There's a lot of talent on that roster. Huber Davis has done crazier things in the tournament before. What if they go on a run that we don't predict? What if Penn beats Illinois? What if St. Mary's beats Houston in that first round matchup? There's so much potential for craziness to happen in that bottom half. I think VCU can beat North Carolina. I don't think North Carolina is that good at this point without Caleb Wilson. I think St. Mary's handles business against Houston, against A&M, and then could move on and be a threat for Houston. But really, I have Houston, Illinois there. All that to essentially say I have a Sweet 16 of Florida, Vandy, Houston, Illinois. So one slight upset there.
So,
yeah.
No, it's okay. It's funny talking through these things. It's one of these. It's just I guess the best way of saying it is, as long as you have the humility, there's nothing worse than talking to somebody who like is so all knowing going into the tournament and is like, doesn't leave room for and then you throw out there like something like, hey, but what if McNeese State beats Vanderbilt? He's like, no, and it's like that couldn't happen. And you're just like. So I guess you don't know how this tournament works. Now, last year was all chalky. There's, I think, an overall thought that with the NIL money and, having the extra year of eligibility and the transfer portal that, maybe the top seeds are going to prevail. I'm not really ready to jump on that. I still think that last year was a unique situation, and I think this tournament's crazy. And just by watching enough basketball this year, I don't know if the top end talent is, on the 1 and 2 seeds. Like, I think one of my favorite bets, without knowing exactly which team I think is going to make the Final Four, is the over. I think the number is 8.5 for like the total. All the teams that make the Final Four, like what the seed they are, does it add up to over under 8.5? But all right, that was fun to go through the bracket. Let's rip through these games real quick before you roll. Everybody that is betting on the games, besides filling out the bracket, as I said to start the pod, I really, really, truly believe you should bet big money Saturday and Sunday, relatively, whatever big money is to you. Today and tomorrow is like the parlay day. Like put some teasers together, have some fun, focus on your bracket. But if you're going to watch the games, like they got to come up with these lines right away. And these lines, don't read too much into the lines. The lines makers don't know what's going to happen. It's hard to find an edge in the NFL. Like, not only is it hard to find an edge, it's nearly impossible because there's, you know what I mean? Like, they have enough time to make the lines. There's enough people thinking about it. These games, they just want us knuckleheads just betting. So once the games are over Thursday and Friday, and you see the line right away for Saturday and Sunday, and you feel great about it, make some strong bets. But with that being said, let's rip through these 16 games. Stop me if you're like, man, I really have a strong take here. I'm going to read you what the spread is, remind you what the seeds are, and the total. So for anybody listening, if that helps out, here we go. So the first, and I'm just going to go in order. So we got the 8-9. What a great game to start. TCU and Ohio State today. Ohio State minus 2.5, total 146.5.
I think you just bet a money line there at that point, like 2.5 points. If you get burned on that spread, just tip the cap. If you feel good, bet TCU money line, or I guess bet Ohio State spread. But
no, I was going to say, right, if you like Ohio State, bet them on the money line. TCU, you should take your 2.5 points, right?
Yeah.
Got it. All right. I like the under in that one. It's first game. It's early. But betting the under to start the fucking tournament and watching it go to overtime or being in the 80s seems like a disaster. That's one surefire way to start drinking way too early. So next game is Troy, Nebraska. That's 4-13. You already said you like Troy. It's 13.5 points and then 138.5. Would you take the 13.5?
I'd take the points definitely. And then you could sprinkle some money there on them to just win outright because, well, it's the tournament again. Why not? Like you said, it's first weekend, so have a little fun. Play a little more aggressive.
South Florida's getting 4.5 despite Louisville's best player not playing Brown. It's an 11-6 matchup. The total's 163. expecting a lot of points here in the middle of the afternoon. What's your thoughts?
I think there's some value on the under, and there's definitely value on South Florida there. There's definitely value there. It's a bad situation to be in if you're Louisville missing your star freshman, and I think, definitely look at South Florida to try and take advantage there.
At the same time, roughly, the 12-5 matchup is Wisconsin High Point. Wisconsin 10.5, another big total, 162.5. Thoughts?
I think the total is very real with how Wisconsin plays. Like, I see that happening, and I think just play the line the way you feel. I think that Wisconsin can definitely cover, but at the same time, I think that they can lose the game. It's one of those weird matchups. So, yeah.
There you go. Duke is playing Siena, minus 27.5. Under 135.5. Leave it alone, or do you just take Duke here?
You can take Duke. I think Duke covered relatively decently this season, so look at that. I don't know if there are people that know how well a team covered every matchup. I'd check those numbers for those 116 matchups because I don't know, in all honesty.
So I love McNeese State without knowing much about them. They're getting 12.5 points. They're playing Vanderbilt in the 12-5. It's a big number. The total's 149.5. But McNeese State was in the tournament last year. They beat Clemson, and then they lost their coach, Will Wade, who's now with NC State, and they're back in the tournament. So it's kind of like, fuck you, coach. We didn't need you. And here we are. We're back in the tournament. And now it's like, damn, we kind of need the coach. Or can they hang with Vanderbilt today?
I like the over there. I think that they can definitely just score. I think it'll be a game that definitely you see points in. They can, again, like I said, that region, the South region of the bracket is chaos. They can definitely beat Vanderbilt, but I take the points in the over. I think that's definitely more likely to happen.
North Dakota State is facing Michigan State. If there's one way to screw up everybody's bracket before dinner time, it would be North Dakota State winning. It's a 16.5 point spread. It's 143.5. Michigan State doesn't score a lot of points. Do you have any thoughts that North Dakota State can keep this thing close?
I think that this could actually be one that North Dakota State can cover, and I think the under could hit too. I wouldn't be shocked to see Michigan State come out a little flat in this matchup. They have a great bracket and a great path to getting all the way to the.
They're already thinking about, and it'd be easy for them to be thinking about the UConn, UCLA potential, the Duke.
And they just don't score enough. Like, they're not a team that scores at will, so I can see them slipping a little early. I think they'll handle business once it comes down to it, but there's a team that could have some slippage early on. It definitely is Michigan State.
It jumps out that number is 16.5 when some other 3 seeds are, in the 20s, like Illinois. Hawaii getting 15.5 against Arkansas. The total's 159.5.
Hawaii can probably score enough to keep it relatively close, but I don't think that's a good line. Honestly, I think it's probably worth staying away from there.
The marquee matchup, every game's fun, but I think the game that people will be the most split on and just should be a great game is the VCU North Carolina game. That's going to start the nighttime slate here. North Carolina's 2.5, and then the total's 151.5. 11-6 matchup. What do you think?
They've kind of priced it pretty perfectly. They've almost priced it to a point where there isn't a ton of value there. I think there's a real world where this game stays within like 3 points by the end. Like, I think it could be that close. I don't love betting it. If VCU was getting 4 or 5 points, I'd start thinking about it a little more, but 2.5 is a little close for me.
VCU has so much momentum. They rip through the tournament. I like VCU tonight. I like the fact that it's a road game without a raucous crowd. Like, the difference between the first round tonight is, there'll be Carolina fans, but I kind of think that maybe VCU can spin it to their advantage. Whereas the Florida-Houston game in an Elite Eight, that's sold out. That's all Houston. It's a one-game situation. So, I kind of like plus the other teams that are there, whoever's playing later tonight will root for VCU. So I like VCU tonight. Michigan's playing Howard. Any value here? It's 30.5 and then 151.5.
Probably not. Maybe on the total. If you think that in order for Howard to cover, they'd have to push that total over. I think the total is more likely to go over than Howard scoring enough.
I was gonna say, I think Michigan would like to get their offense going. It's been they've kind of just been struggling to score. They might come out of the gate and be willing to play a little faster, get the momentum going. Plus, they know playing St. Louis and Georgia the following game.
They're going to need to go. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of like the value there. Texas BYU, we talked about that earlier. BYU is favored by 2.5, and the total is 157.5. Do you think that goes over? Is it too high?
It's close. It's, again, another really well-priced line. I feel like, honestly, these first-round matchups, the lines will be priced a lot better. I think if you feel good about an upset, then I feel like money line's kind of the way to go there, is to just kind of go lower units and just take the extra juice on the line, because this is the most time they're going to have to think about a line really forever. And I think, like you said, the value is there on the weekends.
A&M playing St. Mary's. St. Mary's 3.5, and the total is 147.5. This is like the most polar opposite teams, right? A&M wants to run up and down the court. St. Mary's would like to walk up and down the court. Who do you think wins?
You kind of bet them in tandem, right? I think if you think St. Mary's is going to win, you have to understand that the over is not hitting. It will be an under game. And if you think A&M is going to win, it's the opposite happening. The over probably does end up hitting. So I think there's one.
Yes, Illinois is favored by a gazillion, 25.5 against Penn. But Penn's coming off one of the more fun, stories here. That the kids score 44 points for them in their win. So
I always have to cover that. Even as a fan of Illinois, I think Penn can keep that within 20 or around there.
169.5 is the total for Georgia and St. Louis. It's -2.5. You already mentioned that it was a coin flip. Is 169.5 going to scare you away, or would you like to still go over? Georgia goes over.
The over can probably still hit there. I mean, these are two really good offensive teams. It's almost like they're playing a game of chicken, but I think you should be willing to play that game. Like, I think both teams could definitely score 90.
Yeah, they scheduled the last games, right? So Penn, Illinois, Georgia, St. Louis. Like, that's the highlight of the last game. Then the last two are big favorites also. So it's Gonzaga's 21.5 against Kennesaw State, and the total is 154.5.
Probably Gonzaga both ways. I think Gonzaga actually doesn't rotate their roster as much as some people think. I think they could actually want to just make this a dominant win and just destroy them. So,
and then the last one is Houston, 23.5 against Idaho, and the total is 137.5.
See, that's one where I think the total can definitely go under, and I think it's because Idaho is scoring less than 40 points probably. Like, it's one of those games where
Idaho's not
from Houston in the tournament before, they're just not going to score.
You know what didn't help? I didn't have to be at practice to know that it probably wasn't pleasant for Houston after they beat Kansas and then lost to Arizona in the championship. After the way they lost in the championship last year, Samson's getting to the point where it's like, dude, I'm now doing it your way. I'm doing the freshman. He's got Sinet and then Fleming. They let him down in the championship. They're going to kill this fucking guy. I mean, he's out of control. He's frustrated all the time. And I guarantee you, that's probably the best bet is who gets to score the least amount of points today will be the last team. It'll be Idaho. They won't be able to score. All right, I kept you a few more minutes than I said I would. Maybe we'll catch up next week before the Sweet 16.
Definitely.
Kind of rip through some NFL stuff and just catch up for a little bit and maybe preview some baseball. So if you're not too busy next week, let's do that.
Yeah.
See if we can link up, talk about the Sweet 16, see where we're at. But yeah, everybody enjoy. I don't know if this helped. I don't know how many decisive things. I don't even know if we picked a national champion. I think I said Florida is my pick, but then Xavier Lee makes me nervous.
Arizona's probably mine, but a lack of true star makes me a little nervous there too. But
yeah, I genuinely don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion. So I think I'll go back to Florida. There you go. All right. Thanks, dude. Catch up with you soon. And good luck to everybody. Good to see everybody. And see you guys next week.
I see you.